Hello everyone, it's your boy Zereph here, and today I'm making a different type of video. Usually I'm always covering something goofy, funny, or maybe some serious topics involving real life things. But today I want to talk about a game that kind of slipped off into obscurity. It's one of those games that it's truly a creepy experience no matter who plays it, in my opinion. And it's kind of, sad that it kind of really didn't get the attention most of these other horror games get. The game I'm referring to is Remember.exe, or rather the franchise Remember.exe. I call it the franchise because there were multiple games to this, some of which were never played to begin with on YouTube at all based on my knowledge, and some that were played but not by enough people for it to gain any traction like other meta horror games or horror games of that genre. And I just would like to cover these subjects in this video and make you aware of one of the creepiest horror games you've never heard of. So sit back, relax, buckle up, and make sure you turn off those lights because we're going to dive right into Remember.exe. In 2014, a website named Mindshape Co. began to host the 4 games of interest: Remember.exe, Lost Memory, Link, and Void. The games were popularized on the creepy gaming subreddit, but only fell into the let's plays of a few small YouTubers at the time, leaving the game obscured in mystery and longed for, especially after its random disappearance. Due to the game becoming pretty much impossible to find, even through my own personal experience, many people began to recount their own encounters with the game, like how they experienced it themselves, and due to this, a lot of very disturbing rumors came into play. So before we go into the game, let's talk about some of those rumors, and then we will talk about the game itself to see if some of those rumors remain true. As I said on Reddit, a lot of users begin to complain about specific features present within the game, or specific games to be exact, because remember, there are 4 games in this this franchise. The 2 games in question that seemed to be malicious were Lost Memory and Link. Now, after interacting with the Link game, which is basically an IRC based game, IRC is basically like a chat type thing where you type something in, and in this case Ben would respond to you, or Link would respond to you. Eventually, while playing this game, unknown to you, your email will be logged and sent to the developer's email, which I believe was Lost Memory 436 or something along those lines. From here, since you had this IRC thing running, which was essentially a command line, it would scan your computer and try to find an email, and also enable your web camera. With these two, the developer would take a picture of you, email it to himself unbeknownst to you, edit it to be a little creepier, and then send it to either the player themselves or to other players. Of course, this garnered a lot of backlash. People were extremely creeped out and just assumed the developer was a true creep, that this game was more malicious than entertainment. Another rumor that came into play was that there were some other malicious things that the game would do. For example, your task manager would be unfunctioning, or the game would just brick your computer in general. Eventually, the developer had to step in and discuss these things, which is something we will talk about more towards the end of the video. What's more important is that this really enhanced the gameplay experience. To those that didn't get a response from the developer, or for those who played the game and never even saw these responses from the developer, it really exhibited some very virus-like functions. On launch, I think the game had more mechanics than the current version that I was able to procure. It took forever to procure this game. I'm talking like 8 hours. I think in the past I also tried to make a video of this sort, and I was unable to even find a working copy of the game. There's a lot of links that have been taken down by Sam himself, like DMCA'd on Mediafire, or you can find the game and it just won't run, because what's very important about this game is once you've played it, that is it. That's your one shot. Once you've beaten the game, or once you've opened it enough times, it'll stop working. And I believe at some extent, it'll even delete itself and the files that it created. So you have one shot at this game. And those who played it and sent it around, basically were sending around a bricked copy of the game. The game wouldn't function. It wouldn't do anything to your computer. It wouldn't even play. But to those who did play it and were able to play it, the game would play like it usually does. You spawn in a field with 3 buildings. And what's important to note is you can easily already scare yourself to death. If you press Alt, and I believe if you press Windows, or anything that'll leave the game screen, because I believe if you leave the game screen and attempt to record it, which is what I was doing, the developer tried to get around that. It'll say you shouldn't have done that. while a link screen plays, and your computer will shut down. So for some players, another odd thing I noticed was when you're walking towards these 3 buildings, for me at least, they were all empty except one on the far left, which is the one that contains a character. Now, when I went to watch some other people play the game and do my own research, I realized that gameplays as recently as 2018 and 2020 featured characters that were not in my own gameplay and not in the original gameplay, at least for some people. That leads me to believe that the game is actually randomized as well, or maybe even personalized, as some people even speculated. Because when you spawn in, there's a chance that there will be a dead Link and a mad salesman. When I played the game, all the times I played the game, none of that happened. I played the game twice now. And for some of the YouTubers I watched play the game, and I will show that on screen, it didn't happen. But for some, it did. And it didn't seem to be like one of those things that was updated in or patched out. So I believe that this was just, my own game just did not have this. It was something that was either personalized or randomized, and I didn't receive it. After you explored these 3 buildings, you would eventually run into Ben, who will just jump scare you in usual Unity game fashion, and the world will become blacked out. Once you leave out of that building that you met Ben in, the moon from Majora's Mask will be above you, shaking the screen and pretty much scaring anyone who is terrified of that thing, which is most people. A beam of light will come down that you need to approach, and once you approach it, a timer will begin. During that entire sequence where you're approaching it, by the way, a Ben statue is teleporting and following you around, but it doesn't do anything to you. But while that timer is playing, when you're in that light beam, the mad salesman pops up, and he's basically telling you, you thought you had more time, you thought you could escape, this is the end, you can't change the future, or something along those lines, before jump scaring you yet again with like a static sound and crashing your game. Now, after the game crashes, this is where it's important, after the game has already shut down, you will hear a laugh. The game crashed. I don't think the game crashed. I think this is fake. I don't think the game actually crashed. It's probably going to reopen. Oh, you hear that? For most people that have not played horror games of this sort, which is very rare, meta horror games, which is basically a game that can interact with you or tries to break the fourth wall to interact with you, are games that are very niche. A lot of people have not played them. Once you have closed the game, you will hear that laugh, and a text file on your desktop will appear saying you shouldn't have done that. Opening Task Manager to check and see if the game is still running, which is what most people will do in this scenario, will open another text file immediately that says that won't do you any good. At this point, you're supposed to reopen the game, and it's supposed to bring you to a cave area. But as I said, my gameplay was different. When I opened the game, and I believe I have this recorded, I hope I do. When I opened the game, a JPEG of Ben basically popped up on my screen and started just .exe. No, it is not. No, it is not. Look at my screen. I don't know what character it is, but I believe it's supposed to be associated with Ben. Now, in the version that most people received or was able to play through, you spawn in a cave. You are to proceed through the cave, and you will see like the masked salesman and a glitched Link, which are just kind of just standing there. The masked salesman will give you hexadecimal, which I have yet to translate, but I'm sure by the time this video comes out, we'll have it translated. It'll be on the screen here. After that, you can proceed through the cave, in which Ben will chase you. Touching him once will deal enough damage for you to eventually bleed out, and the game will crash after asking you, do you understand? Once again, the player is supposed to reopen the game. They will spawn in another open field with reverse music playing. This is where the game can go different ways. You proceed through this field until you reach a small home containing a girl with no face, and you'll get an ocarina. Playing the Song of Healing will result in death by drowning. Playing the Song of Unhealing will teleport you to another cave where Ben will scare you and kill the player in a way that's very similar to the other cave section. And playing the Elegy of Emptiness will make Ben just teleport around in the same location where you found the ocarina before killing the player at random. In the end, the game will close, and any attempts to open the game will just serve with an image, or not even the image, a cutscene I guess you can call it, of you laying in a puddle of blood with Ben looking down at you. Saying all this makes it sound like another one of those creepypastas, like a game like this wouldn't really exist. But it's very creepy knowing that a game you could download off the internet could really step outside of its own boundaries and still interact with you outside of the game. What's really important here is for people to understand what the game is, right? For those who, are listening to this, they probably don't understand what the developer's intentions were. Who is the developer? Why would they make such a thing? Was it supposed to be a recreation of the original Ben Drown creepypasta, or what was this? What interests me the most is that my current version didn't allow me to get past the first level of the game. I mean, I was too nervous to play it anyway, and with the freaking scares and shut downs, I decided to proceed to Lost Memory, which we'll cover in a different video, because that's where we kind of find all the really creepy happenings that involve the developer himself, Sam. So, like I said, what is the game about? It's obviously influenced by the Ben urban legend and creepypasta, Ben Drown, but it kind of has its own purpose, which, as the developer put on Reddit, was just to scare people. There is no malicious intent, there is no deeper meaning. The game was meant to scare people. He said himself the game has no secrets and no Easter eggs, at least Remember.exe doesn't. And although it's kind of odd that he says that, because we've seen a bunch of different things from different YouTubers. So it's kind of odd that the developer would say himself that there's no Easter eggs or no secrets when there are different endings and different places in the game and different outcomes depending on what you do. So that was kind of odd for him to say. It's as if he didn't want people to continue to delve deeper, because the specific Reddit that I found this on was a Reddit for digging deeper that was hosted by some ordinary gamers who also deleted his videos on the game, and they're not even uploaded on his archive channel, which I find kind of strange. In the other games, which were Lost Memory and Link, the developer removed the webcam feature that we mentioned earlier and the email function. So basically the version of the game I played no longer has that. The Lost Memory game and the Link game, they no longer have those features. In his eyes, these were all to add to the fear factor. He didn't really think what he was doing would really lead to such a terrible outcome and have all this backlash. In a way, I kind of agree with him in saying that it did add to the scare factor, and I kind of wish he didn't come out and say anything. I get it. People were truly afraid, but in the end, it made for a very creepy happening. You gotta admit that. Even those that were harmed by it realized that really added to the scare factor. Those who had played it and never seen gameplay or heard of any of these things truly felt despair and fear, knowing that some unknown force could breach out of its own cage. This game was able to step out of its own bounds and interact with them. Not many games can do that nowadays. Not many games will even try to do that nowadays. And that makes it even creepier. Those who play it will be left wondering, is it really over?